welcome back to the OT Guide. I'm Dana, and today I've got a special video for you occupational therapists out there who are eager to secure that school-based OT job. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty, I should mention that I've been on interview panels myself, so I've got some insider knowledge to share with you all. Stick around and I'll make sure you're well prepared to ace those interviews. Now, before I jump into specific interview questions and answers, let's review 3 guiding principles I want you to remember that will make you stand out amongst your competition. You may have heard of the trendy interview acronyms out there like the STAR, SOAR, or CAR method, but I'm whittling it down even further and giving you just 3 strategies to remember, okay? So strategy number 1, keep your answers concise and to the point. Keep your answers to about 60 seconds in length or so. This makes you sound confident. And yes, while you are rehearsing, time yourself. Strategy number 2, your answers must always have a positive spin. And I know this seems so obvious, but you wouldn't believe some of the answers that I've heard on interview panels. If you're leaving a job because you're disgruntled, your interview is not the time to air your grievances. Figure out a way to put a positive spin on it. Showcase your great attitude and growth mindset. Strategy number 3, have stories and examples ready to share. This is essential because it gives you credibility. So make sure you have the following memorized and rehearsed before you get to your interview. First, your favorite treatment activities. If you haven't had a school-based position yet, draw from your fieldwork experience to come up with some stories. It's a good idea to have 3 of your favorite activities in your back pocket that you can break out at any time. Next, have an example of a difficulty or conflict with coworkers and or parents and how you handled it, including your general approach to conflict. Include what happened, explain how you worked collaboratively to find your solution. Finally, know what your strengths are and be prepared to substantiate them with a story or example. So I like to have 3 different strengths and a different example to illustrate each strength. All in all, if you stick to these 3 guiding principles, you will ace your interview. Now that you know my guiding principles, let's jump into some of the most common interview questions and how you should answer them. Question number 1, tell us about yourself. Many people, when they hear this question, they're overwhelmed by it because it's so broad and they just blah, 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 blah. And this is exactly what we want to avoid. So here's an example of a good answer to this question. Sure, my name's Dana. I'm originally from Connecticut. I graduated from USC in 2015. Ever since I've been a PEDS OT. In my free time, I love working with kids. I volunteer at Big Brothers Big Sisters. I love working with kids. I'm passionate about it, and I'm excited to share my knowledge and expertise with you all. Why do you want to work at our district? A quick note about this question. It's really just about plugging yourself. So what problem are you a solution to? This is where you get to show off your skills. So here's a good answer to this question. I want to work at your district for several reasons. First, I love the mission statement about developing resilience and curiosity in our students. I think these 2 traits are so fundamental to education, but also personal growth. The second reason is because I'm a team player and I believe I could strengthen your OT team here. On my previous OT team, I helped make an onboarding training and spearheaded all mentorship for the new OTs. And I even got recognized for this achievement from the superintendent. All in all, I'm passionate about close-knit collaboration, and I think this quality will lend itself well to working at so-and-so district. So you see how in this answer, I first explained why I want to work at this district, then I explained why the district would benefit from hiring me, and last I substantiated my claim with an example from my former job. Next up, what are your biggest strengths? This is another opportunity to plug yourself. This time, you want to make sure you plug different strengths than what you said in the previous questions. So if above you said that you're a team player, now you're going to mention something different, a different strength. So here's an answer. One of my biggest strengths is that I'm a very organized person. I'm great at handling high caseloads and making my schedule streamlined. For example, at my prior position, I managed a caseload of 75 plus students across 5 different schools. I was able to do this because I use many different organization methods. I use a physical planner, a digital calendar, and I'm great at planning ahead in general. I love the dynamic nature of this position and being able to learn from so many different IEP teams. What are your biggest weaknesses? This question is a trap. Do not self-sabotage, my friends. You have two options here. The first option is to mention a weakness that has absolutely nothing to do with the new job you're applying for. So you're applying to be a school-based OT. Maybe your biggest weakness is creating presentations. Your other option is to mention an old weakness that is related to the job that you already overcame. So my answer to this question is usually as follows. When I first started as an OT years ago, one of my biggest growth areas was presenting my evaluation results at meetings. I just remember being so nervous, especially at those high-profile meetings. But fortunately, this was an area I really practiced. I rehearsed my reports, even wrote scripts for them in the very beginning, and sure enough, this weakness turned into a strength. Now during meetings with parents, I love sharing my results, and I can do it confidently. Next question, how do you assess a student? This question is very straightforward, and it's really just to double check you know what you're doing. This is your answer, so just be sure to memorize it. Whenever I assess a new student, I'm very comprehensive. My first step is to make sure that the assessment plan is signed. Once signed, I start by reviewing the student records to learn about important background information, including medical history. Next, I interview the parents and the teachers to learn more about strengths and concerns. From there, I complete both standardized and informal forms of testing to gain a fully comprehensive picture of the student's skills. The standardized tests I'm familiar with include the BOT, SPM, VMI, sensory profile, MFIN, DTVP, print tool. Informally, I also take a look at handwriting samples and the student's ability to use classroom tools, so scissors, glue, pencil grasp, computer access. Only after I get all of this information do I write up the evaluation. Beautiful answer. Next question, how do you collaborate with other members of the educational team? This is another pretty straightforward question that requires a quick example or story, so here's something like what you could say. Collaboration is key to the student's success. Every day it's my priority to work closely with both parents and teaching staff. For example, one of my favorite ways to collaborate is providing push-in OT services for some of my special education classrooms. This allows me to better understand what the teachers are working on and share some of my favorite tips. Another way I collaborate is by giving parents some OT homework if that's something that they're interested in, and mention that at the IEP meeting. Ultimately, collaboration is a top priority for me as a pediatric occupational therapist. Short, sweet, to the point, awesome. Your next question might be a case scenario, so here's one I've been asked before. You're in an IEP, Dana, and a parent disagrees with your results or what you have to say. What do? Your answer. This happens from time to time. What I remind myself of is that parents are concerned and they want what's best for their child. So knowing this and being empathetic, I can work with them, and together we can come up with a solution that they're happy with. I remember when a parent wanted more OT services than I initially recommended. First, I explained what the least restrictive environment is so they could better understand where I was coming from. And then we agreed to add consultation services to the student's IEP. This way, the parent felt like they were heard and that they're a valuable member of the IEP team. Next, can you share an example of a challenging case and how you handled it? Here's a great sample answer. Absolutely. The good thing about having a challenging case is that it pushes you to grow as a therapist. I remember when I worked with a student who really struggled managing his behavior and had a diagnosis of oppositional defiant disorder. For weeks, I struggled getting him to work with me during OT, so I decided to reach out to some of his other therapists and providers and ask them what worked. And they shared with me that his favorite thing in the entire world is animals. So sure enough, I made OT animal themed. I addressed all of his OT goals through animal research, and sure enough, he started working with me and making a lot of progress. I really learned a valuable lesson working with the student, and that was I always need to figure out what my students like and what motivates them. How do you stay updated on the latest OT practices and research in this field? This question's a gimme. You're simply going to say, I love learning and continuing to learn as an OT, and then you're going to list your favorite continuing education classes and how they've affected you. For example, one of my favorite continuing education courses was Handwriting Without Tears. This transformed how I provide top-down handwriting interventions for kids in schools, and the results have been absolutely drastic. How do you explain least restrictive environment to a parent? So this is a question that's testing your knowledge about the basic IDEA laws. You're gonna have questions like this, so here's your answer. Being able to explain IDEA law to parents in colloquial terms is essential to the job. The way I explain it is as follows. LRE refers to the least restrictive environment. That means students with disabilities should be educated in settings that are as similar as possible to the ones where students without disabilities are educated to promote inclusion. Least restrictive environment also emphasizes providing the least amount of support or intervention necessary for a student with disabilities to be successful in their educational environment. The idea is to strike a balance between providing the support needed for the student to thrive and also ensuring that they have the opportunity to develop independence. Anyway, that is it for today, folks. These are the most common interview questions you'll bump up against. Obviously, these are not the only interview questions, but they are a very strong start. I hope you found this video helpful. Remember, if you rehearse, stick to the 3 guiding principles, being concise, positive, and having stories and examples in your back pocket, you will crush. Good luck, and if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tailored content for occupational therapists. Bye.